Pay attention to this security camera as it captures a 17-year-old girl walking alone along a quiet street. Casual clothes, relaxed pace, smiling. Her name is Georgia Williams. 7:30 p.m., May 26, 2013. Wellington, England. The camera follows her as she moves through the frame, heading toward a residential area minutes from home. She appears completely at ease, no fear, no hesitation. Watch as she walks into the frame. She never walks back out. By the time her parents realized something was wrong, Georgia had been gone over 24 hours. The person responsible was already 280 miles away. Police would later recover digital evidence from his devices, photos taken that night, messages, a calculated plan documented in detail. If you want to see how investigators use digital forensics to expose a killer, make sure you stay with us, because what they found in his search history will chill you to the bone. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe button so you never miss any coverage in this channel.
The 17-year-old, who's a former head girl and the daughter of an officer of the West Mercia Force, was last seen at 7:30 on Sunday evening, leaving her family home here in Wellington. Her parents thought she was going to spend the night with friends. They are devastated by her disappearance.
Now, let me help you understand who Georgia Williams was and why she agreed to walk down that street on a Sunday evening in May. Georgia Williams was born on September 7, 1995, in Shropshire, England. She grew up in a close-knit family. Her father, Stephen Williams, worked as a detective constable with West Mercia Police. Her mother, Lynette, and her older sister, Scarlett, completed their tight family unit. By all accounts, Georgia was everything parents hope their children will become. She had been named head girl at her school. She was intelligent, responsible, well-liked by teachers and students alike. But Georgia's childhood hadn't been easy. She had been bullied when she was younger. That experience left a mark on her. It shaped the way she treated other people. She understood what it felt like to be excluded, to be made to feel unwanted. She promised herself she would never make anyone else feel that way. As soon as she was old enough to work, Georgia took a part-time job at a local petrol station. She wanted to earn her own money. She wanted independence. She had big dreams for her future. Georgia wanted to become an RAF paramedic. She was excited about her life, about what was coming next. The week she disappeared, Georgia had her first driving lesson scheduled. She had been looking forward to it for months. She also had plans to attend a music festival with friends. It was at the petrol station that Georgia met Jamie Reynolds. Reynolds was 23 years old, 6 years older than Georgia. He had actually been in the same year at school as her older sister Scarlett. The Williams family had seen him around before. Their impression of him was simple, quiet, polite, unremarkable. Reynolds worked alongside Georgia at the petrol station, and according to court records, he developed romantic feelings for her. He made those feelings clear. Georgia gently turned him down. She didn't share those feelings, but here's where her kind nature put her in danger. Because of her own experience with bullying, Georgia didn't want Reynolds to feel rejected or excluded. So she remained friendly. She continued to spend time with him. She made sure he felt included when the staff hung out together. Reynolds told his colleagues he was interested in photography. He said he wanted to build a portfolio. He wanted to escape the routine of working at the petrol station and pursue it as a career. Georgia, always supportive, offered to help. When Reynolds asked if she would model for some photographs, she agreed. According to investigators, she believed other friends would be there too. It seemed harmless. They made plans for Sunday, May 26, 2013, a photo shoot at Reynolds' parents' house, around 7:30 in the evening. That Sunday, Georgia was at a family barbecue. She left early to make it to the photo shoot on time. She told her parents where she was going. She said she'd be back in a couple of hours. Reynolds' house was only a few minutes away on foot. Her parents had no reason to worry. But what Georgia didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that the friends she thought would be joining her had never been invited. There was no group photo shoot. There never had been. It was a trap. And Jamie Reynolds had been planning it for a very long time. Georgia left her family home at 7:30 that evening. Her parents expected her back within a couple of hours. But those hours passed. There was no sign of Georgia returning. Lynette, Georgia's mother, sent her daughter a text message. She asked how things were going. She wanted to know when Georgia would be home. A response came through. The message said the photo shoot had finished. Georgia was staying with friends a while longer. She wasn't sure when she'd be back. The text ended with 3 kisses. That was Georgia's usual signature. Her mother had no reason to doubt it. Lynette went to bed that night believing her daughter was safe. She woke up around 6 o'clock Monday morning. She went to check on Georgia. The sight stopped her cold. Georgia's bed was untouched, perfectly made. She hadn't come home at all. Lynette sent another message. She asked where Georgia was. Hours passed before a response came through. The message said Georgia had lost track of time, that she'd stayed at a friend's house, that she forgot to send a message. Then came a line that made Lynette uneasy. "My battery is dying too." This wasn't like Georgia at all. Georgia never wanted people to worry about her. She always let her family know where she was. It was one of the things her parents could count on. Georgia was responsible, reliable, but now it was Monday afternoon. Georgia had missed her driving lesson, the one she'd been excited about for months. She hadn't come home to prepare for the music festival she was supposed to attend. By Tuesday morning, Georgia had been out of contact for almost 2 full days. Panic set in. Lynette and Steven started calling around to Georgia's friends. They asked if anyone had seen her, if she'd stayed overnight at someone's house. Nobody had seen her. Nobody had heard from her. Georgia's phone now went straight to voicemail. The battery was dead, or it had been turned off. Matthew, Georgia's boyfriend, made a desperate appeal on Facebook. He begged anyone with information to come forward. Within hours, the post had been shared hundreds of times. Word spread like wildfire across social media. Georgia Williams was missing. Her parents went straight to the police. They had one concrete fact to give investigators, one name. Georgia had spent Sunday evening with Jamie Reynolds. And that's when everything changed. Police ran a routine background check on Jamie Reynolds. What they discovered made their blood run cold. In 2008, when Reynolds was just 17 years old, he had lured a 16-year-old girl to his home. He told her he needed help with a media project. It was the exact same tactic he would later use with Georgia Williams. But once the girl was inside his house, Reynolds attacked her. He tried to strangle her. She fought him off. She escaped, and she reported it to police. When officers investigated, Reynolds' parents came forward with disturbing information. They told police their son viewed violent pornography. They showed officers something even more alarming: pictures of 3 girls in school uniform. Reynolds had drawn nooses around their necks. The youth offending team was brought in. Mental health services assessed Reynolds as well. Both agencies came to the same conclusion independently. Jamie Reynolds posed a significant risk to young women. So what did police do with this information? They gave him a final warning. Nothing more. According to the Serious Case Review published years later, the victim's injuries were never photographed. Neither she nor Reynolds were referred to a forensic medical examiner. Police treated it as a simple assault. The case was filed away. Authorities considered it suitably resolved. A final warning: for attempting to strangle someone, for possessing images of girls with nooses drawn around their necks, for behavior that 2 separate agencies said made him dangerous. But the warning signs didn't stop there. In 2011, Reynolds was reported to police again. A female colleague had rejected his romantic advances. His response? He reversed his car directly into her vehicle. Police responded to the incident, but they made no comprehensive checks on Reynolds' background. No one searched the system for his name. No one connected this act of aggression to the 2008 strangulation attempt. The link was never discovered. The pattern was there, screaming to be noticed. A young man who couldn't handle rejection, who became violent when women said no, who had violent sexual fantasies involving strangulation. But the system failed to see it. Or perhaps worse, the system saw it and decided it wasn't worth acting on. Now, in May of 2013, Georgia Williams was missing, and Jamie Reynolds was the last person known to have seen her alive. This time, police moved quickly. This case reveals how warning signs can be missed with devastating consequences. If you want to see more deep dives into cases like this, hit the like button and let me know in the comments what case I should cover next. But the question investigators faced now was urgent. Where was Georgia Williams? And more importantly, was she still alive? Police immediately began tracking Jamie Reynolds using CCTV footage and automatic number plate recognition technology. They were looking for his stepfather's silver Toyota Hiace van. The trail led them north, far north, almost 300 miles away from Wellington, all the way to Glasgow, Scotland. Investigators found Reynolds at a budget Premier Inn hotel. He was alone. There was no sign of Georgia Williams. Security cameras in the hotel car park captured something strange. Reynolds was seen making a quick change of clothes next to his van. He appeared calm, unhurried, like a man without a care in the world. Police Scotland was contacted. Officers moved in and took Reynolds in for questioning. Reynolds played his role perfectly. He acted like a concerned friend. He told officers he knew nothing about Georgia's whereabouts. He seemed confused about why police were even asking him questions. But investigators weren't buying it. They knew his history. They knew about 2008. They knew what he was capable of. Reynolds was arrested. He was brought back to Shropshire for further questioning. For hours, detectives pressed him. Where was Georgia? What happened at his house on Sunday night? Where did he go after she left? Reynolds continued to deny everything. He refused to reveal where Georgia was. He gave investigators nothing. But police knew they were running out of time. Around 5 o'clock the next morning, senior officers arrived at the Williams family home. They knocked on the door. Stephen and Lynette Williams would later describe that moment. They said they knew instantly. Before the officers even spoke, they could see it in their faces. In the heavy silence that hung in the air, their daughter was gone. Georgia Williams was dead. The investigative team headed back to Reynolds' house. It was the last place Georgia had been seen alive. They needed to find evidence. They needed to understand what had happened inside that house. What they were about to discover would horrify even the most experienced officers, men and women who had spent decades working violent crimes, who thought they had seen the worst humanity had to offer. They were wrong, because Jamie Reynolds hadn't just killed Georgia Williams. He had documented it, photographed it, turned her final moments into a collection of images that matched the violent fantasies he had been nurturing for years. Inside Reynolds' house, investigators found his camera. It contained a memory card. Someone had tried to wipe it clean. The files had been deleted, but the deletion process was incomplete. Forensic experts were able to recover what had been erased. What they found painted a horrifying picture of Georgia's final moments. According to testimony presented in court, the photographs showed that Georgia had been forced to stand on a box. A ligature was placed around her neck. The ligature was attached to a loft hatch above her. Reynolds then removed the support from beneath her feet. He photographed everything, before, during, and after. Prosecutor David Krigman told the court that one image captured was described as the last photo of Georgia alive. Other images showed her body move to different locations throughout the house. Reynolds had staged her, photographed her from different angles. After Georgia's death, according to court records, Reynolds violated her remains, and he documented that as well. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't a moment of lost control. This was calculated, methodical, planned. Prosecutor David Krigman told the court that Reynolds had followed a pre-written script. He had fantasized about this for years, and when the opportunity came, he executed it exactly as he had imagined. Investigators didn't stop with the camera. They seized Reynolds' computer. What they found was staggering. 16,800 images and 72 videos of extreme pornography, all of it violent in nature, all of it involving strangulation and asphyxiation. But there was more. Reynolds had digitally altered images of up to 8 women he personally knew. He had taken their photos and added ropes around their necks. These were women from his life, women he worked with, women he saw regularly. Investigators also found 40 graphic written stories on his computer. Each one involved fatal and sexual assault on a woman. Each one described the act in disturbing detail, and then they found the script, a detailed document describing how to trap and kill a victim. It outlined the steps, the materials needed, the method of execution. It was a blueprint. And according to prosecutors, Reynolds had followed it almost exactly when he killed Georgia Williams. Jamie Reynolds was immediately charged with murder, but even with all this evidence stacked against him, Reynolds still refused to tell investigators one critical piece of information. Where had he hidden Georgia's body? Her parents deserved to bring their daughter home, to lay her to rest with dignity. But Reynolds wouldn't give them that. He held on to that information like it was the last bit of power he had left, so police had to retrace his steps. They had to follow his movements after Georgia's death. And what they discovered showed just how cold and calculated Jamie Reynolds truly was. Police began piecing together Reynolds' movements after the murder. CCTV footage would prove vital to building a timeline. May 27th, the day after Georgia went missing. While her family was sending text messages to her phone, while her mother was waiting for her to come home, Jamie Reynolds was captured on camera at a petrol station. He was filling up his van with fuel. Georgia's body was already hidden in the back. Reynolds drove approximately 60 miles to Wrexham, North Wales. Security cameras tracked his route. He didn't drive straight through. He made a stop at a cinema. Reynolds bought a ticket to watch a Fast and Furious film. According to investigators, it was the same movie he had been trying to persuade Georgia to watch with him just days earlier. He sat in that darkened theater for 2 hours, surrounded by families, couples on dates, people enjoying a normal Monday evening. The entire time, Georgia Williams' body lay in his van in the car park outside. Think about that level of coldness, that complete disconnection from what he had just done. But there was a gap in the timeline that troubled investigators. Reynolds' van was spotted at 5 o'clock in the afternoon in Wrexham. It was spotted again at 10:30 that night in Queensferry, Cheshire, heading north. That left 5.5 hours unaccounted for. What had Reynolds done during that time? Where had he gone? The answer came when members of the public started coming forward. They had seen Reynolds that evening. His van had gotten stuck on the side of a road. They stopped to help him. These good people, just trying to assist someone they thought was having car trouble, had unknowingly helped a killer dispose of his victim's body. They told police exactly where Reynolds' van had been stuck. Now investigators knew where to search. On May 31st, 2013, 5 days after Georgia went missing, police found her body. She was in woodland off the Nantygarth Pass, near Ruthin, in North Wales, approximately 50 miles from her home. Georgia was found without clothing. She had been barely hidden, left in the woods like she meant nothing. The beautiful 17-year-old girl who dreamed of becoming an RAF paramedic, who had her whole life ahead of her, who had been excited about her first driving lesson and a music festival with friends, discarded. May 31st, 2013. 5 days after Georgia Williams walked down that street, smiling and carefree, heading to what she thought was a photo shoot with friends. A post-mortem examination was conducted. The cause of death was confirmed as pressure applied to the neck. Ligature strangulation. Georgia had been hanged, just as the photographs on Reynolds' camera had shown. On June 4th, her body was formally identified using dental records. Stephen and Lynette Williams had to face what no parent should ever have to face. Their daughter, their bright and beautiful Georgia, was gone. The girl who had been head girl at her school, who worked hard at her part-time job to earn her own money, who wanted to serve her country as an RAF paramedic. She had been 17 years old. She had her first driving lesson scheduled, a music festival to attend, a whole future stretching out in front of her, all of it stolen by someone she had tried to be kind to, someone she had included because she knew what it felt like to be left out. Georgia's empathy, her refusal to make others feel the pain she had once felt, had been weaponized against her. And the man who did this had been on the radar of police and mental health services for 5 years. They knew he was dangerous. They had been told explicitly that he posed a significant risk to young women. But a final warning was all he received. Now Georgia Williams was dead, and her family was left with questions that would haunt them forever. Could this have been prevented? Should someone have stopped Jamie Reynolds years earlier? How many chances did the system give him before he finally killed? The answers would come, but they would bring no comfort. On October 3rd, 2013, Jamie Reynolds entered a plea of not guilty. He was going to force Georgia's family to sit through a trial, to hear every detail, to relive their daughter's final moments in open court. But on December 2nd, 2013, the first day of his trial at Stafford Crown Court, something changed. Georgia's father, Stephen Williams, was at the courthouse early. He watched Reynolds before he entered the courtroom. What he saw made his blood boil. Reynolds was laughing and joking with the guards, showing no remorse, no shame, no acknowledgement of what he had done. But the moment the cameras were turned on, the moment the judge was watching, Reynolds' entire demeanor changed. He became meek, childlike, playing the role of a broken, remorseful young man. Then Reynolds changed his plea to guilty. He spared the family a lengthy trial, but the damage was already done. Stephen Williams had seen the real Jamie Reynolds, the one who felt nothing. On December 19th, 2013, Reynolds was sentenced. He received a whole life order, life in prison without the possibility of parole. At 23 years old, Jamie Reynolds became one of the youngest people in British history to receive this sentence. Mr. Justice Wilkie addressed Reynolds directly during sentencing. His words were chilling. You watched her die in circumstances where you could have saved her, and doing so was a central part of your pleasure. After the killing, you took sexual pleasure in her body, then treated her body with contempt, dumping her in a remote area. Psychiatrists who assessed Reynolds came to a disturbing conclusion. He had the potential to become a serial killer. If he had not been caught, Georgia Williams would not have been his last victim. In 2014, Reynolds appealed his sentence. The Court of Appeal responded swiftly. Lord Chief Justice Thomas described the murder as horrific. He said the sentence was just. The appeal was flatly denied. Jamie Reynolds would spend the rest of his life behind bars. But for the Williams family, that wasn't enough. Because justice in a courtroom doesn't bring back the dead. It doesn't answer the question that haunted them every single day. Why was Jamie Reynolds free to kill their daughter when the system had known for years that he was dangerous? An investigation was launched into how Reynolds' previous attacks had been handled by authorities. In October 2015, a serious case review was published. What it revealed was damning. At least 8 agencies had been involved in Reynolds' case over the years, but at no time did all those agencies meet together. There was no clear, coordinated approach to managing the risk he posed. The review found that police had taken a blinkered approach to the 2008 strangulation case. They treated it as an isolated incident. They didn't see the bigger picture. Agencies also made what the review called a flawed decision. They chose not to tell the girls whose photos Reynolds had altered, the ones with nooses drawn around their necks. One of those women was Jadine Dunning. She waived her right to anonymity to speak publicly about what happened. Jadine was only shown the altered photo of herself after Georgia was murdered. She told reporters, "They've put my life in danger there. Not only my life, other young girls' lives, and I think that's completely wrong." So what were the consequences for the officers who failed to act? 6 officers were served with misconduct notices. 4 officers and 1 staff member faced misconduct meetings. Not gross misconduct, which can lead to dismissal, just misconduct. 1 officer and 1 staff member received written warnings. 2 officers received management advice. That's it. And one of the officers involved was later promoted. Georgia's parents were devastated by the outcomes. They described the proceedings as lenient beyond belief. Lynette Williams said, "We liken the misconduct meeting to a group of junior school children being told off by the headmaster." Stephen Williams was even more direct. "Georgia died because the suspect had more rights than the victims." Lynette added, "We cried when we read this report, and we cried even more when we read the Devon and Cornwall report. In our eyes, it's 10 times worse." Chief Constable David Shaw issued a public statement. "We could have and should have done better. We let Georgia down. But apologies don't bring back the dead, and written warnings don't change the fact that a 17-year-old girl died because the system failed to protect her." The local community rallied around Georgia's family. They raised over £2,000 for a memorial bench in her honor, a place where people could sit and remember the bright, kind young woman whose life was stolen. Her family established the Georgia Williams Trust. The organization helps young people pursue their passions through grants and partnerships. It's a way to keep Georgia's spirit alive, to help others achieve the dreams she never got the chance to fulfill. But Georgia's case also teaches us hard lessons about system failures. A final warning meant nothing without follow-up, oversight, or consequences. Reynolds showed warning signs for years. His violent fantasies were documented. His dangerous behavior was known to authorities. In 2008, the victim's injuries weren't photographed. Neither she nor Reynolds saw a forensic examiner. In 2011, no checks were made linking Reynolds to his past. Information wasn't shared between agencies. The girls whose images Reynolds possessed weren't warned. Every single one of these failures created an opportunity for Reynolds to kill. There are practical lessons here too. Trust your instincts about people who make you uncomfortable. Verify who you're meeting and what you'll be doing, especially for activities like photo shoots. Tell a trusted adult not just where you're going, but who you're meeting. Unusual requests are red flags. Report them immediately. Georgia trusted Jamie Reynolds because she had a kind heart. She included him because she knew what it felt like to be excluded. Her compassion was weaponized against her by a predator who had been given chance after chance. Georgia Williams should be alive today. She should be living her dreams, working as an RAF paramedic, helping people, making a difference. Instead, we're left with a memorial bench, a charitable trust, and the knowledge that her murder was entirely preventable. Georgia's story is a reminder that we must demand accountability from the systems meant to protect us. If this case affected you, please share it to raise awareness. And if you want to see more in-depth coverage of cases like this, subscribe and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.